Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
Okay, today we are doing episode 996.
Okay, so the reason we're numbering them and telling you about the number is because we are traveling at breakneck speed toward episode 1000. What's special about what episode 1000 is, first of all, it's episode 1000. Woohoo! And then the next thing that's special about it is that we are going to be answering your questions. So, on top of the questions that you normally put down in the comments, we want you to put comments that you might want to ask us or you might want us to answer during episode 1000. They can be anything. So they can be, for example, Todd, how many houses have you sold in Las Vegas?
Okay.
Or, for example, Todd.
That's not very fun.
Okay.
Okay.
How about a fun question? How about, Todd, how long were you in the armed services? What branch of service did you serve in? What was your experience in the service?
Two of them. I was in two different branches of the armed service.
You can't answer that now.
I know.
You're answering
But I didn't tell them which ones.
Oh, my God. Anyway, you can ask some moderately personal questions.
It was almost 3. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
You can ask moderately personal questions like, how many kids he has, or what his favorite color car is, or I don't know, something like that. So you can ask all kinds of interesting questions. Anything you ever want to ask, you can ask him, and he may or may not answer, but at least give him the opportunity to answer your questions.
Yeah, I like that. Those
okay,
are good.
There you go.
Say, you could say like, "Hey, Oana, how old were you when you bought your first house?"
Mm-hmm.
Or "That's an interesting name. Where did it come from?" Or "Do you speak other languages besides English?"
Okay.
Right?
Or you could ask me my favorite cut for a dress, or you can ask me my favorite kind of shoes.
Favorite drink?
Oh, favorite drink. Oh, that's an
favorite drink.
Question.
What do you like to drink? Do you drink, or do you like to drink?
There you go.
Okay, so we'll just answer all those questions on episode 1000, which is going to be Saturday.
Yes.
Which is like the 6th, I think.
Right. So that means that you have to ask all those questions by Friday, okay? Because obviously we're going to be answering those questions on Saturday. And your questions can be silly, they can be fun, they can be interesting. We welcome all questions, and we reserve the right to answer them in any way we choose.
Okay. So here is today's topic. It's from an article. It says, "This deja vu in the housing market. Is it 2006 all over again?" Now, Oana, people operate based on patterns. Oh, another thing that you might want to ask, and if you don't answer, we're going to tell you, is maybe like, what books do you read? Like, what have you read? Like, do you have a reading list? That'd be interesting, is like to find out what people read.
Oh,
I'm always interested. There's a couple people I subscribe to their Substack just to find out what articles they're reading, because I think it's interesting. Anyway.
But in order for you to find out the answers to these questions, you're going to have to hit the notification bell and subscribe.
Okay, so people notice patterns. And one of the patterns that they've noticed is the prices. So they saw prices go up, just like they saw them back then. So they immediately drew all these conclusions, right? Which is natural.
It is, except that we do need to consider context. We talk about this a lot on our videos. You do have to consider context. 2006 was different. What made it different? A couple major things. One was lending practices, right? The joke used to be that you didn't have to fog up a mirror to get a loan, but it was helpful. The other thing was, so of course, credit scores didn't have to be all that great. You didn't have to prove income because they had all the no doc loans. They had all these loan products that were, in hindsight, predatory. So there were all these things that enabled people who maybe shouldn't have purchased homes, or shouldn't have purchased those number of homes, or shouldn't have purchased homes at that price point, to purchase homes.
That fake demand and speculation triggered home building like we've never seen ever in the history of the nation.
Right.
Because every home builder in the world said, "Oh my gosh, I can build a house. I'm guaranteed to sell 100%, and I can build the next 3 houses and charge $5,000 more for those."
Right. So I don't know if you remember this, but it used to be that people used to physically camp out at the builder's sales office the day before they would release lots. I mean, physically, they would camp out like it's a concert or something, so that they could be in the lottery to put down money on a house. I mean, it's insane, but that's the way it was.
True story, 2005, I had a client who came to me to buy a new home. We went and looked at the subdivision. They said, Saturday, we're going to open up 5 lots. You have to be here Saturday if you want to be in the running for the lots. So we showed up on Saturday morning. There were over 40 people there. And so what they did is I swear to God, they had everyone sign in, and then they took a piece of paper and they wrote numbers like 1 through 40 or whatever. And they tore them up and gave everybody a number. And then they did the same thing, and they like literally put them in like a hat or a thing. And then they picked out 5 numbers, and those people then got 2 privileges. They got to pick the lot. There were only 5. I think actually one of the people passed because they said they were only there for a specific lot. Somebody else had picked it. So there was technically a 6th person. My client was one of the people who got it. And he was thrilled because what happened was this was on a Saturday. They said, okay, if you don't have the check, that's fine. You can bring it, I think, Monday. He brought the check Monday. When we came in Monday, they said, we've opened up more lots and we've already raised the base price $1,500 in 2 days. And he this is his first home. And he just looked at me and said, I just make $1,500 in equity on the house. I go, sorta. That's what's going on. So it was definitely crazy back then.
Right. And remember, back then we had the subprime lending, which we do not have today.
And we're going to talk about that. Okay, so let's do this. There's a bunch of different elements that existed then that don't exist today. So to educate everybody out there, because right now their education are the crash bros who literally, if you don't know what this means, look up the word hyperbole. They're the master. They do 2 things very well: hyperbole and video editing. I'm pretty sure most of them, and I know some of them for sure, their videos get sent to the Philippines or places like that, or Vietnam, where they have like somebody that they pay $2 an hour that just does video editing, that spends and edits all their videos. We can't do that. I edit all the videos. Okay?
Well, okay. So you have to understand where people are coming from. We do these videos because we enjoy doing them, and we have these conversations even when you're not watching, and that's why we do them. They do them because that's how they derive their income. We clearly do not derive our income from this. This is just because it's fun for us to talk with you guys and to engage with you guys. So consider where people are coming from. Consider what their incentives are. Our incentive is to have an open dialogue with you guys, and not to necessarily have 1 million subscribers and make
30,000 a month in videos from or 30,000 a month from the videos. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's start with the lending practices.
Right.
Okay. Now, I went to our good old friend ChatGPT to find the data. I've been using ChatGPT more and more. What I typed in was, what percentage of home loans from 2005 to your most recent knowledge were adjustable rate? Can you show them year by year for comparison? And it basically said, hey, I don't really have the exact data, but it did have this data. Second paragraph. According to the MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association, 2005, ARMs made up 36% of all mortgage originations. That was just means that year. Okay. By 2006, it was 38%. In 2007, it was 47%. So about half of all loans were ARMs. However, after the housing market crashed in 2008, the popularity declined. Since then, the percent of ARMs has remained relatively low, with the MBA reporting that ARMs made up around 3% of all originations in the first quarter of 2021. And that's because that's the latest, the LLM ends in 2021. It doesn't have data after that, okay? So, Oana, let's talk about these numbers a little bit, because we were both there. Like
we were there.
We were there 3,000 years ago. You probably don't understand that if you didn't watch the Lord of the Rings.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right. So, kind of like I started talking about it. So we had some subprime mortgages at the time, which of course got people into homes that maybe shouldn't have gotten into homes. We also had a lot of ARMs, which are the adjustable rate mortgage loans. Now, these adjustable rate mortgage loans, they are 1 to 3 year ARMs, and not only did the rate of the loan change, but it changed dramatically, so that there were loans that their payments doubled or some even tripled. So of course people couldn't afford double or triple their mortgage payment almost overnight. So that was part of the problem. Today, what we have is, like in 2021, I think you said less than 3% of the loans were adjustable rate mortgages. But overall, the whole body of adjustable rate mortgages out there, is about 1%. So,
Yep.
so not a whole lot. And the adjustable rate mortgages that we have today are 5 and 7 year adjustable rate mortgages. So what that means is that somebody, for example, who maybe is in the military, and they got orders, they moved to Vegas, and they bought a house, and great, congratulations. And they know that they're going to be gone within 5 years, right? They're going to be gone in like 4 years, maybe 4 years and change. So they understand that. So this adjustable rate mortgage makes a lot of sense to them because they're going to do one of two things. They're going to refinance at some point between now and when the adjustable rate kicks in, because maybe they're going to keep it as a rental when they get orders to go somewhere else, or they're going to sell it when they get orders somewhere else, which will be before the 5 years when the loan becomes adjustable. So all those things make sense, and people are not going to get hurt with these the way they did with the 1 and 3 year ARMs back in 2006.
Yeah. Those 1 and 3 year ARMs, the Confagamer loans, the house. I realize the house is only $300,000, but we'll loan you $340,000, right? And then you can use the $40,000 on whatever you want, but you still owe it. But you can use it to repair the house. Wink, wink. Okay. And we know what people did. They went out because we were going to the people's houses when the banks were giving us the listings after they got foreclosed. And they were telling me, like they were literally say, oh yeah, well we took the 100% loan plus 40,000 and we bought a car and a boat. And hey, you know what? We know that this is a non-recourse state and they're going to foreclose and take the house. And now they can't do anything to us. And I've got a free car out of it. So, and I haven't made a payment in 2 years, so I don't really care, right?
Right.
That that whole lending segment, which was called the subprime, is gone. All those companies are gone. All those loans that you saw that originated that ended up in the secondary market that Moody's and everybody else gave these super high credit rating scores, that was all addressed in the movie The Big Short. Guys, that is gone. Here's the next slide. This is the volume of loans in $1 billion that were given a credit score with a people below 620. Look at these numbers. If you look back 2007 and before, you have hundreds of thousands of loans that were given to people with a credit score below 260. That's really, or 620. That's really terrible. When you go 2008 and on, lending practices all got revamped. So all the people who have now says how, none of these people, these are high credit score people these are secure people. We are not going to see the same sort of default ratios that we saw back then.
Right. So remember, these well-qualified buyers is what we've had since everybody kind of got hurt with the bad loans. And back then, I mean, I remember so many people took out 125% loans. That means that if your house is worth $500,000, you got another, $100 and some odd $1,000 on top of that to do whatever you want with. And all of that it was fine for these people because they didn't make the mortgage payments at all. They lived in the house until it was foreclosed and they got to keep whatever it was that they bought with it or whatever vacations they enjoyed or whatever. So there was a lot of that, and that's not happening now. I have not seen any $125,000 loans in a very long time, 125% loans in a really long time. And I don't expect to see that. I think lending practices have become much more responsible, both from the investor point of view as far as loaning to qualified borrowers, and from the borrower's point of view in that we don't have the predatory lending as far as allowing people who are not going to be likely to do well with these loans to borrow the money.
Okay. The next question is, well, what about the availability of homes, like this thing called inventory? Mm-hmm. In the 4 years prior to the crash, I'll put up this chart. You see the little areas. Those were the 4 record years that homes were being built across the country. Now remember, the population wasn't magically exploding. What was happening is there was speculation. Mm-hmm. If you watch the movie The Big Short, people would come to wherever, Atlanta, Florida, California, Nevada, wherever. They would buy a house, new home builder. Mm-hmm. 6 months later, they would call the real estate agent and say, hey, I just bought this house. I paid $200 for it. The agent would go, it's worth $260. They'd say, I know, I want to sell it. And then I would come back and I'm going to buy 3 houses. Mm-hmm. And then they would buy 3 houses. And then in 2005, they would do the same thing. And that now they bought 5 houses. Well, guess what? That eventually ran out. That speculation ran out.
Right. So it was really common for people to come to Vegas for the weekend, go out and buy 1 or 2 houses on Saturday afternoon, and then 6 months later the house is finished and they put it right back on the market to sell it. And that's what Todd's talking about. It's that level of speculation. So these were not investors that were speculating. These were average people who were just entering the market as novices and doing this. And particularly at the beginning, a few of them did it, relatively few compared to the people who ended up doing it. And word spread like wildfire that this was happening, and more people did it. So a few of these turns worked out really well, but toward the end, obviously, we got to a point where we just could not absorb the inventory, and then it all came crashing at once.
Now, you're probably saying, well, but why do we have a shortage of homes then? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Here's the next chart. This is homes built in the U.S. by decade. Now, if you look back at if you look at 2010 to 2019, we built 5.8 million homes in that time period. Part of the problem is the home builders, most of them got wiped out. A lot of private builders literally got wiped out. I personally have friends who owned companies that were literally wiped out completely. They were so leveraged. They had borrowed tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to buy land for their next subdivision they were going to open in 2007 that never happened, because then they couldn't borrow the money to build, and building costs were too high, and then home prices were plummeting. So what happened was builders got wiped out and they stopped building. So you can see the last time we built 5.8 million homes was in the 1930s during the Great Depression. So we have this massive shortage of homes. We just underbuilt. We didn't literally get back to almost building the normal number of homes that we normally build just to keep up with the population growth and household formation in the U.S. until 2022, when it started tapering off again. And then home builders started backing off, saying, hey, we're going to stop. We're going to slow the new home build. It's estimated, Oana, how many homes are we short in the U.S., single-family homes?
So depending on who you listen to, it's anywhere from about 2 million to about 7 million. Obviously, the happy number in between is probably somewhere around 6 million, 5 to 6 million, because it all depends on how you're calculating that, whether you're looking at household formation, whether you're looking at population growth, all kinds of things. But the bottom line is, like Todd said, we have built substantially less homes than even the average is, and we are not keeping up with the household formations. We have obviously mitigated that through some other home building styles, because we have some next generation homes, and we have some home products like that have sort of helped out with that, but we are still short as far as building homes. The other thing that we're not keeping in mind, and I've talked about this before, is that we have an aging home stock, right? Our homes are aging, not so much in Las Vegas, because Las Vegas is pretty new, but across the country we do have an aging home stock, which means that these homes are functionally obsolete. So you'll have a 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom. Well, you know what? That people don't want to live in that. You have homes with maybe small rooms. Maybe the whole home is really small, and we've gotten accustomed to larger homes, maybe low ceilings, maybe homes that just need to be retired, and we need new homes to replace them. So all of these are not even counted in the number of homes that we need built, because those would just be replacements. So we're looking at needing somewhere around maybe 6 million new homes, plus what we need to replace the aging home stock, the functionally obsolete home stock. So when you're looking at those numbers, now those numbers are far greater.
Okay, so we've identified the subprime lending and poor lending practices do not exist today.
Correct.
So let's just take that, push it off the side. That is not happening today.
Correct.
People are not just speculatively buying homes. You have to be qualified. You have to prove income. It's much more difficult.
Yes.
It's backed. People buying homes are backed by the fact that they can pay off the homes, right? Yeah. Another thing we didn't even mention here is that 40% of all homes owned in the U.S. right now are free and clear.
Right.
Because a lot of people in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 just said, homes are so cheap, I'm just going to go buy one. And they were either buying them with very little, they were paying cash, or they weren't getting very big loans on them, and they paid them off since then.
Well, the other factor is the baby boomers have paid off their homes. They're at that tail end of their debt, and so that contributes to the 40% of homes that are free and clear.
Right. Now we have all the lack of home building that's created a shortage. Okay. Now, the one thing, and I'll go ahead and put this slide up, was foreclosure activity. Mm-hmm. Now, as you know, that you can see back in 2006, it was 718,000. And then it went to 1.3 million, 2.3 million, 2.8, 2.9, 1.9, 1.8, 1.4 in 2013. Between 2007 and 2012, so those are actually 6 years, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oana, how many houses did you and I sell? Listings did we sell during that time?
About 3,000.
About 3,000. What percentage of them were REOs?
About 3,000.
Literally all of them.
Almost all.
Okay. I will not go over the story about how we got in REO. It's a fun story. We'll save it for the 1,000th video.
Yeah, you can ask us questions about that.
How did we fall into that? Yeah, actually, it was extremely well, we'll talk about in the other video how we fell into it. It's a fun story. Okay, here's the thing. You can see that basically it did take many years. We were still selling Franny properties, I think up to 2017 or 18 before we didn't get any more, right? Mm-hmm. So the REOs were basically, all of these REOs were REOs from the past that were sort of slowly coming out. Now, if you look at 2020, 21, and 2022, the level of foreclosures, these are the lowest levels. You have to go back to the late 50s to find foreclosure levels this low. Mm-hmm. Okay? You have to go back very far. And now, so what people are going to say was, but COVID. I heard there were 4 million people that got foreclosed in COVID, and the banks have just been holding on, waiting to dump those houses on the market. When a bank takes a foreclosure back, is it a public process? Do they have to publicly file a foreclosure? And is it something everyone can see?
The entire process is public.
Okay. And we're not seeing that because this chart's actually showing that foreclosure activity. What people are remembering is this. Look at this chart. This was COVID. This were all the people who said, hey, remember 27 million people literally overnight lost their jobs and said, I'm not paying rent or I'm not paying a mortgage. Now, Oana, if you're not paying rent, why would that affect someone not paying their mortgage?
So, certainly if you are a landlord and you have a mortgage on the property, maybe you can support the mortgage for a little while. But if people aren't paying you rent long term, then you can no longer support that mortgage sometimes. And that's part of what happened. So you had people who were owner occupants and they weren't paying their mortgage because they lost their jobs or they were laid off or furloughed. And then you had tenants who were laid off, furloughed, lost their jobs, and they stopped paying rent. So their landlord paid the mortgage maybe for a while, but then they ran out of money too, and they stopped paying the mortgage too. So that's what we saw. That's what those red bars are. Those are the people that were impacted by COVID in that way.
Okay, forbearance. That's not foreclosure. It looks the same, but it's not.
Right. So this is where there are notices going out and they're trying to work it out, but
notices meaning they may be getting a letter, but
right.
There's no actual foreclosure filing.
Right.
They're just behind on payments.
Right. So they're trying to do work out because if you remember, when COVID happened, Congress basically told the lenders, you need to work it out. You're not going to foreclose on these people. So the way it worked was you called up your lender or you called up your servicer and you said the word COVID. And that meant 6 months, get out of jail free card. No problem. You didn't have to do a whole lot. You just had to say that you were affected or you were impacted by COVID. Now, even if you didn't lose your job, even if you were not negatively impacted in any way, except maybe you couldn't get to the grocery store and get anything because the shelves were bare, especially toilet paper, you were clearly impacted by COVID. But that was all you had to say, and your lender gave you a break. And then 6 months later, you could call again and you could say the same thing again, and you got another 6 months. So basically, people were given a whole year to kind of get back on their feet. Now, during this time, you also had the opportunity for a workout process, and the workout was anything from we'll just put your payments on hold to doing some kind of arrangement where your payments got put on the back end, or maybe your payments were actually grew in order to make up for the lost payments for some amount of time. So whatever workout they did. But the bottom line of the whole thing is that by the end of 2022,
they were back to normal. So if you look at this chart, it started May of 2020. By November of 2020, we were down below 3 million.
mm-hmm.
By August of 2022, we were down below 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at December, January, this is 2022, we were down below 1 million, which is historically the normal number.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you know what that number is? It's 0.67%. So that means if you randomly pick 300 houses in the US, statistically, 2 people are behind on their mortgage payment. And there are literally no foreclosures. Fun fact, Las Vegas, we just did a foreclosure update. The number of foreclosures in Las Vegas in the last year is a whopping 150. It's literally a foreclosure every 3 days. It's almost none. We have the lowest number of foreclosures almost we've ever had. So when you hear the people ranting about the foreclosures coming, guys, they're making up numbers. Every video I see where somebody is some crazy thing about whatever, it's all made up numbers. It doesn't exist. We do not have foreclosure wave. It currently takes, Juan, did you remember the average number of days right now it takes to foreclose?
So nationally, it's like over 900 days.
It was 951 days.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine this. Let's say there is a crisis, and all of a sudden the recession, which is going to happen in the fall apparently, even though it was supposed to happen in the first quarter of the year, and it was also supposed to happen last year, but they're not really sure, so they just keep guessing 6 months down the road. Eventually they'll be right. We'll have a recession,
right.
And they'll say, we told you. We told you there was a recession. See, we said 6 months ago in 6 months there'd be a recession. They've been saying it for 3 years, but now we're finally going to get the recession, I guess. And let's say that a bunch of people say, I can't make my house payment, I'm just not going to pay it, right? Well, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to foreclose for these houses to hit the market. And what's going to happen, Juan? Do you think the banks are actually going to foreclose on these people?
Well, I don't think so. There's no reason for it. And there's no reason people would want to be foreclosed because, almost everyone has equity. So what's going to happen in the short term, they're going to work something out with their lender and hope that they're going to be able to get out of their financial difficulties. And if they can't, they'll go ahead and sell the house and put some money in their pocket and figure out what they're going to do next. So the idea that, that everything jumps straight to a foreclosure, it's kind of like saying that, you go from conceiving a child to seeing it get married overnight. Well, there's a whole process in between, folks. And that's kind of what this is like. It takes a long time. There are lots of steps in between. There are lots of different avenues to mitigate the situation. And the banks do not want to foreclose. That's not to say that they won't foreclose. That's not to say you should hide from your lender. That is to say that it is not in their best interest to foreclose if the borrower is cooperative and if the borrower is working in good faith to work something out.
There is no shadow inventory of builder homes that never sold that are waiting to flood the market. The inventory level of homes is about the lowest it's ever been, probably since the 50s, I think. We know that since the 1950s as well, like 57 was the first year they started measuring vacancy rates for owner-occupied homes. We have the lowest vacancy rate, meaning owners are staying in their homes. They're not just abandoning their houses, which is the sign that potentially they may get foreclosed. They've just given up and they leave in a house that's vacant. Literally every housing metric is absolutely fantastic. The only thing people are upset about, interest rates have happened to go up from, 2% or 3% to 6%, which historically is still below. I mean, we're basically at historic average. I think average interest rates are about 6.8%. I remember buying the first house I ever bought was 10%. The second house I ever bought was 8%. The third house I ever bought was about 6%. And then the fourth house I ever bought was 4.25%. And these we're talking 90, no, 87 was the first house, and then bought a house in 96, bought a house in 2001, and then bought a house, or 2002, and then bought a house in 2011 at literally the bottom of the market.
There you go. So those are some of the types of questions that you can ask on the 1,000th video.
Yep.
So if you thought this video was interesting, it was fun, if you like the charts, we like charts, if you like data, and if you like being informed rather than having your emotional strings pulled, because we do not think that you are a marionette and we do not like pulling your strings, then we welcome you on our channel. Please ask us questions to answer on the 1,000th video.
Fun questions.
Yes, fun questions. Interesting questions.
Anything you might think of.
Yes. And please make sure that you post the questions by Friday so that we have a chance to answer them. We thank you for being here. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell. And thank you for the person who tipped us. We appreciate tips. Yay. So maybe I'll get a bell to ring for
We should
tips.
ring the bell every time somebody takes and say their name, like the name of their YouTube handle or something.
So so if you want to leave us a tip, great. We appreciate it. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.